I was willing to put in the extra work.
Sure enough, it hits my bat.
They do it the right way. They don't take shortcuts. They don't make excuses.
The glamorous part of the game, Sammy, as you know, is winning championships.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Hey Bucket Live. I'm your host, Sammy Glantz, and this week we have on a very special guest, Leilua. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
So I've known Fa personally for about 10 years now. We were just kind of doing the math on this. And I just have to start with this. You have always bat flipped. Like, I'm telling you, since we were 15 years old, you have always been the most feared hitter in the box. You've always bat flipped. You've always had that swagger about you. And then last year, you go national. You are all over social media. You're all over Twitter. You're all over Instagram. I'm seeing you on MLB Network and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Fa. What was that experience like for you? And how did you handle being famous?
I honestly, it just, naturally happens. It's like, I'm in the midst of the moment, and I just happen to do it. It's like, sometimes it's like hitting home runs, like, oh, like, how did you know you're going to hit a home run? Did you know? And it's like, no, I just did the best I could, and it just happens. And the same thing with bat flipping. And one thing led to another on social media, and it just it became a ripple effect after that. But I handled it. I mean, there were some some cruel comments, but majority of the support was amazing. I loved it. I gained all this love from both softball and baseball players, which I definitely loved, and I think that's definitely given me kind of a confident feel of what I'm doing is my own. I wanted to do something I wanted to inspire girls to be themselves, and to not limit themselves in certain stigmas in women's sports in general. So I think to be different is cool, change is good, and being your own individual self, authentic self, is the most important thing, especially going throughout this travel ball, college, and just professional career in general. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for you, you've had a hell of a journey, right? Like, if I remember correctly, growing up in travel ball, you originally were verbal to Washington, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then you end up going to ASU, and then you end up transferring to Mississippi State. Can you just kind of take us through your journey and what that was like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally I was committed to Washington, and I, before my senior year started in high school, we parted ways, and quickly I needed to, get myself back on track, trying to, find another college. And so Arizona State came through, and I, wanted to stay with Pac-12. And so I did. I ran with it, and I just took one step at a time, one day at a time. And it came my junior year. As everybody knows, my father passed, and so I just couldn't really bear spending another game day and looking up in the stands and not seeing him. So that was pretty rough, and so it took a toll on me mentally, and then soon after physically. And then I just decided to look for another home to give me a different scenery, to give me kind of just a new purpose of continuing this softball journey in the collegiate level. So, and I found that in Mississippi State, and I loved it, and I don't regret my decision at all. And it definitely was something that completely changed who I am, and it gave me a different purpose of these different journeys. It became the coach I am today, especially with experiencing 5 different coaches in my 6 years of college career. So it definitely gave me a background in something that I have that not necessarily a lot of softball players in the college level have experienced. And I definitely want to give back to the younger generations that do have a future. And I want to be able to give the best version of myself to help guide these girls to their journey.
Beautifully said, Fa. And everyone's journey is so different and so beautiful in itself. And I think, to me, just to see how strong you are as a woman, and to come back and start your career fresh at Mississippi State. What about Mississippi State made you so attracted to go there and so far away from home, right? Just you're just on your own, and you were just kind of there to start fresh.
Yeah. Like you said, it was thousands of miles away, and I just kind of just did it. It felt like, I was watching myself going through the motions. I wasn't necessarily at the time trying to, mentally heal myself at the time, but I was just trying to get through the things that I needed to get through in order to get back on that field. And what I found at Mississippi State was a very family-oriented atmosphere, and that's what I needed at that time, being broken. And so it definitely made a huge difference, and I just the love that I get from the fans and your teammates and your coaches and whatnot is what definitely made my decision easy to never give it a second chance, to never give it a second doubt, to not commit there. So it was definitely it for me.
And by the way, in that year that you transferred to Mississippi State, after taking a year off, you go on to be an All-American. You're hitting 22 home runs, which is now second in school franchise history for single season home run records. And you just have an unbelievable year. What was that like for you to just be surrounded by, just such love and such, coaching staffs that really believe in you and just allow you to be you?
It felt great. It gave me a purpose again. Having softball at one point being, once it was an outing for me. And when I lost that, it was kind of devastating. And so when I came back into this, program at Mississippi State, it gave me a purpose again. Getting the love, the unconditional love, was amazing. It was just, I really couldn't fathom it, but to live in that moment. And I, definitely don't regret any of that. So it's just an ongoing love that I continue to have even when I'm done there. So it's, I still get texts like, "Oh, we missed you, da da da." It's definitely exciting to have that, to fall back on, especially in that program. So yeah.
It's so special, and you found your home there, which has just been so amazing and so great to see, like what happens when an athlete can find their home and feel comfortable, and like you were able to shine for the Bulldogs, which is super, super cool. Just going through the recruiting process and then also transferring, what is your biggest piece of advice for, girls who are going through the recruiting process?
I think the biggest thing I could definitely give these girls is to, these recruiters, they can definitely see talent from a mile away, and I think the most important thing that separates them from good players to great players is to be that what builds character is, failure. Obviously, you're going to go, you play a sport that you're going to fail majority of the times, you're going to succeed. So I think the most important part is how well is your character built? How well can you come back? And I think that's the biggest thing for recruiters to see is, that's character right there. That's what, separates yourself from, the crowd and stuff like that, to be your own authentic self and how you do and how well do you react with these failures and whatnot, but failures are, what that they don't define you. I think how well you come back is what defines you as a person, not even as a player as well, but it takes a lot to mature, So I think that's the biggest thing that I can give to my girls who are going through the recruiting process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, coaches are there, every day. They're watching you after you strike out. They're watching how you react when you go back out into the field, and like, that, and just growing up with it, and I think something about you that I will always be thankful for, and I'll always, just reminisce on, is you've always been the best teammate. Like, no matter if you go over at the plate, no matter if you're not playing and you're on the bench, right? Like, you are always there supporting on your teammates. And I think that's something that everyone's always loved about you. How were you able to always, keep that part of your game?
So, I mean, it took a lot of growth. It took a lot of maturity. It took a lot of failures. And it just kind of, to put that into perspective, I felt as though that, I didn't really look into that as a player until my senior year, my 6th year. And before we started that year, I actually spoke to my aunt and I told her, I'm going to be a lot more patient. I'm going to be, I want to be able to, reflect something different that, not a lot of people, think I can handle, So I think being able to prove that year was amazing, especially at the plate, being able to walk that many times. That season was, kind of so shocking to me, overall proving certain things that I couldn't possibly do back in the days. Now that I've done it, it's like awesome. So, but it took a lot of growth, maturity, and so what got me out of those moments was to focus on someone who's basically doing really well at that game, and being able to focus on that person got me out of that rut. And I was able to, flush the negativity and just focus on my teammates and just being a team player in general. So just being able to trust that was great too, and trusting the process overall.
And you are referring to the fact that was it your grad season when you come back and you have 40 walks, which is 47 walks, which is absolutely unbelievable, 4th in the nation. And you are one of the most feared power hitters of all time, right? And so how were you able to kind of tweak your approach? Was it something mental? Was it just simply, what you were talking about, just as a personality trait?
Yeah, pretty much. Knowing the fact that, physically, that if I'm able to, knowing the fact that, majority of the game now is mental. So I wanted to focus on that. And I knew that I needed to get better at my mental game. And I decided to set a goal for myself and to be patient. And I haven't been the most patient in my early careers in college. So I decided to demand that before I started season. And that's what my aunt and I talked about. And, that was my goal. Every game is to be patient. So what, getting right back mentality, and just kind of just being able to conjure that, and was pretty cool to see, because, the more I did that, the more I started to feel as though, like, okay, I got to allow myself to see the game in a different perspective. It's not playing checkers, it's playing chess. So it's like kind of a mental game, and it was pretty awesome to see for myself. That was knowing the fact that the season that I had before my grad year, I wasn't going to have the same year. I wasn't going to have the same opportunities to be able to perform like I did the year before that. And so I had to make an adjustment. Every new challenges asks a new you. So I took that into consideration, and I decided to just demand that. So.
Yeah, so your senior season was cut short in 2020 due to COVID. And so you come back your grad year, and that's when you were able to kind of just slow it all down and just have that patience at the plate. Was that your goal going into your final year of softball, or how did that kind of feel, knowing that you have one last go to the game that you've loved your entire life?
Oh man, it was pretty emotional. With the trials and tribulations that I've gone through with the game of softball in my collegiate career, was definitely eye-opening, and it allowed me to open up different doors and possibilities that I could potentially take as a player going into that year. And I wanted to be able to improve my self-talk, as well as, my physical game. And I think a lot of that whole year was just being mental, being mentally, positive as much as I can realistically, and so that was my main goal, was to do that. And kind of being mentor to the younger girls too was one of my biggest goals, as well as trying to lead these girls as best I could. Being able to, experience the amount of years that I've gone through, um, gave me a look that, I this is something I could definitely use and give these type of knowledges that I wish I had knew my early years, to these girls. And that was my biggest goal, was just to help out the younger girls and to be patient.
Absolutely. And now, just with all the knowledge that you have gained from softball, from playing collegiately and recruiting wise and playing travel ball, now you are working with the youth and you are giving back. And I think that's absolutely amazing that you can pass on all the things that you've learned. But what are some of the biggest things that you preach to your girls?
Um, the biggest thing that I preach to my girls is, um, to be unapologetically themselves. Um, you know, I think it's awesome that, they have idols and they have people that they look up to, but I also preach to, um, to pave their own paths, to be able to, create their craft in their own way. And I think that's what, builds self confidence. I think being able to be internally driven to, conquer their own paths is a success of their own. And I think, um, that's what I definitely preach to my girls. And same thing with just being able to, to accept change, to be open, to being able to be coachable in different, you know, um, atmospheres and different coaching staffs. I think being able to just do that is the best way to, kind of just mature as a player and being the best player that they can be as themselves.
I always found it really interesting, because going through the recruiting process, you feel like, okay, and you're getting wined and dined, and you get to go to the football games, and it's fun and it's awesome. And then once you get to college, it's showtime. It's go time, and you're competing with your teammates, and you're day in, day out, 6 a.m. workouts. You're in the grind, right? And you're
Yeah.
balancing school and all that. What was the biggest surprise for you, I would say, going from, high school ball and travel ball to now being a freshman at you?
Um, I think the biggest surprise that I've had was just being able to manage all of that. Rather than relying on your parents or, just being able to do it on your own was just like eye opening. Like, oh shoot, I really have to do this on my own. I really have to manage and prioritize the priorities, to a certain extent, where I have to build time for certain things in order to be successful as a player. And that's I think that was the biggest thing, was just being able to manage, your social life, school, and sports and training off the field was definitely, something that was like, whoa, that was a huge grow up thing for me, being independent, being away from home, having my own space was definitely kind of just a different, thing for me, going into the college level. So it was definitely, kind of just surprising to me that I was able to do that, and so, but I'm proud of myself because I usually just didn't really think about that going into college. So, um, but I loved it though. It definitely, kind of just molded me, um, not only on the field, but off the field as well, just being prepared for different things in life.
Right. I know. I just remember going in to college and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go do my own laundry. I'm like, where's
Right.
the laundry? Now you have to go
Right.
find it and then you go find your food. It's
Yeah.
just, you're on your own. Figure it
Yeah.
out. Figure it out.
I think that's what always been the motto, was just like figuring things out on your own. Was just, I think that's also a part of life too. I mean, um, that's definitely what I always tell my kids. Like anything that I can teach, I want to be able to teach as a hitting coach, but also, being a mentor to these girls, like this also relates to life. You know what I mean? So I always tell it, like try to remind them that too. But yeah, no, it's definitely eye opening.
But like exactly, like going back to what you're saying is the fact that you just figure it out. Like every single little challenge that you're going to go through, whether it's on the field or off the field, like you will find a way. And I think that's what's so beautiful about being a collegiate athlete is you're going to be faced with these challenges and you got to just figure it out.
Pretty much.
What would you say is the biggest lesson that you have learned from the game of softball?
That the game knows, and it's kind of a weird way. After my last year, I couldn't preach this anymore, but the game knows. Meaning, it's kind of interesting to kind of explain, but it's something that we've always, growing up in the softball world. Sam, I don't know if you could relate to this, but we've always had this, softball gods, this whole thing, and now I get it. It's one of that like light bulb click. It's like, oh wow, that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, was just the game knows. If you are able to play the game that you've been playing since you were little, and just being able to know the game rather than just being so mechanical and so, guide-like. I think the best way to do it is just to explain is like the game knows. For example, you haven't been playing for X amount of games, and all of a sudden you get the opportunity and the first hit goes straight to you. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the biggest examples is like the game knows, whether you're ready or not. And I think that's the biggest part. Like, man, that's fascinating to me. And so it's like, you never know. And so I think the best part is to over prepare so you won't underperform. I think that's the biggest lesson that I can definitely give or I've learned throughout my career. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm having like these horrible flashbacks to when I don't know if you're gonna remember this. I don't think you're gonna remember this, but I was just talking to my dad. He'll never let me forget. We were on Stith's team, and I was playing left field, and I don't know why I was in left field. Whatever, they threw me out there, and I just remember, dude, I was like, oh my gosh, there's something in my eye, and so I'm like, I really can't see.
I do remember that. I do remember that. I do. I remember that.
Sure, I ran over to you after. We were just in the dugout, you and me, and you were like, dude, what happened? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So there's something in my eye, and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh man, I really hope the ball doesn't get hit to me right now. I remember like that thought went through my head. I was like, because I can't see. And then sure enough, the game knows. It knows I don't want it. Ball gets straight to me, and I'm twisted up. I turn over my left shoulder, but I had to really turn over my right, and now I'm just backpedaling. It just goes right over my head. Now, and now I'm booking it to the wall.
Yeah. We're all like, what just happened? But and then you came in like, dude, there's something in my eye. And I was like, what's going on? Like, is there? And so I don't know if I was trying to help you out by like blowing, and I was like, okay, is it good? Or it's like, yeah, I think so. But that was funny. I do remember. That's crazy.
You. Hey, you were a good teammate for that. You even went with the story. You're like, let me get it out of her eye. There's something, clearly there's something in there. You should have caught that.
Right. Oh, man.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm your host, Sammy Glantz. For more content like this, be sure to check out fastpitchfilms.com. See you guys next time.